Hello, and welcome, comrades, to a brand new Let's Play series. That was, of course, a bit of tongue-in-cheek. This is Crisis in the Kremlin, and I have probably stupidly decided to set the difficulty to realism mode, so it starts on easy by default. There's apparently also game modes 19Q4, 1904, Perestroika, and Solzis. No, I'll just show. Alright, easy, realism, hard. These are considered a separate game mode. Solzhenitsyn, who is a propagandist and a liar. It should be use evil kind of thing. Perestroika. Apparently you have to play on hard to unlock achievements, but that's fine. I don't think I can do that for my first game. But realism is probably hard, but harder than it should, be for when you first play it through, but dark mode. Cool. That's a nice touch. These are the developers. Yeah, I should probably. There's scenarios? Perestroika. Here you can play scenarios. All scenarios must be purchased separately if you bought a scenario but didn't start. Interesting. Tutorial. Greetings, comrade. You've just started to rule our country and you don't know how things work. It's not a problem. I'll explain it to you. First, click on the seal below to confirm your competence. You have our personal cabinet, comrade, where you can see current situation in the country. From here, you will use different means of ruling the country and give direct orders. Explore the cabinet. Click on the button on the radio when you're ready. Festive occasion, or, well, rather more, parade. Soviet Pride. So this game, for those who didn't tell from the title, is a game where you try and prevent the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I'm gonna hate for this saying this, but honestly, one of the greatest tragedies of history, if for no other reason than what it did to third world countries who received foreign aid from the Soviets and were able to keep U.S. off their backs by pitting the U.S. and the Soviets against each other. Sometimes to maintain neutrality, or Soviet foreign aid, which is honestly far less oppressive than anything the U.S. demanded, with puppet dictatorships and multiple genocides across the Third World during the Cold War. Indonesia, Bangladesh, East Timor, Guatemala. I've personally known people whose families were from those regions and been affected by at least two of them. So this is, yeah, more close to home than you might think. But anyways, Soviets may have not been the good guys, but they were definitely the lesser evil compared to the U.S. in the Cold War. And the U.S. didn't really show its true colors till after, when it became much more vicious in slowly tying the nuts, the bolts, whatever. And a lot of the foreign things, there's some expression about tying the nuts, must be a Russian expression, but tying the screws on ordinary working Americans with things like Clinton's reforms to welfare that screwed over disabled people. I personally got screwed by something that Clinton hashed out with Newt Gingrich that made it so jobs that you do while in school more than half time for the university don't earn payroll tax contributions. Narrowly cheated me out of the work credits I need for SSDI. I got disabled long COVID just before I finished, returned to grad school later. And that was going to allow me to become a physician. I was almost certainly going to make it. With the work that I did for the university having counted, I would have had the work credits. So it wasn't lack of work, it was certain jobs not being counted. Clinton cut the heart out of the U.S. welfare system. Bush, Patriot Act, Obama bombed countries all over the world. Trump, I mean, and let's not forget things Biden did at the end of his term that have led to part of the current crisis. So I think it's fair to say that things have gone a lot worse since the end of the Cold War, that the system has truly taken the mask off. Anyways, the personal cabinet, there's the globe. I know these things are interactable. Can't do anything other than click this, though, in the tutorial. By pressing the button on the radio, you'll be able to change sound volume and play a random tune from 3 available music compilations. Right. Panel on the right is showing general information about the current situation. It shows A, relations to the USA. Try to evade conflicts with them every time. When relations become less than 0, DEFCON, a number which shows how close the world is to large-scale conflict and nuclear conflict that would end the world, becomes lower, you will get a crisis event. When DEFCON is less than 2, your only choice will be to start a détente, which costs some money, or to start cooperating with the USA, which will cost some of Leninism's achievements. Some doctrines become more pro-American. Or you can just nuke the imperialists if you want to. However, depending on some factions' position. However, so wait, your only choice is to compromise and give in when the U.S. becomes aggressive? Right. Or you can just nuke the imperialists if you want to. However, depending on some faction's position, majority in the Supreme Council, détente can be your only available option. So the developers of this game were Ukrainian Uzbeks, and English is not their first language, and not everything is translated cleanly, but it kind of fits in with the Soviet thing. If relations are more than 100, DEFCON will rise, but not higher than 5. Income, it shows how much money you gain or spend if the number is negative at the end of each turn. Income or spendings, excluding event and map action spendings, arrives every 2 turns. That's good to know. I would have thought it would be every turn. Relations with China. It works similar to the USA relations, but they don't affect DEFCON. If relations are too low, China will make aggressive actions. But in that case, you can rely on the power of your army or financial resources. Power of the army. While wars between superpowers are now long gone, I think it's meant to, this should say now long gone. A strong army is still needed for local conflicts and some operations. And of course, even a superpower can be attacked by a more powerful enemy. And you get political power, I think someone said, based on the strength of your army, so that's also important. Soviet budget. All available money except your gold reserves can be spent in different economic spheres. Authority points. Even a ruler must have enough authority in order to make changes. I'm just kind of on the fly translating this to make more grammatical sense. We use that, just so you guys know, you use them to change doctrines, appoint new ministers, and interact with other countries in the world map. Wish I could get the music going. The game has music, it just doesn't play while you're in here. Some events can also use points. These points can drop below 0, but they're restored over time. Loyalty of the CSS. Writing, special services are not a good thing. If loyalty is too low, or loyalty to the CSS special services, writing is not a good thing. If loyalty is too low, you will have to confront them. People in the army can help you, but it's better to prevent such situations. Loyalty to the generals. Unhappy generals can easily organize a military coup. But you'll still have the CSS and people on your side. Is CSS another acronym for the KGB? Or is that something else? Science points. You'll spend these points in the Academy of Sciences to develop new technologies which will surely help you. They're gained through financing science and some other factors, for example, the space station mirror. Population. It shows how many People produce goods, pay taxes, demand jobs. Large population can also increase the size of your army. Provided people with medicine, homes, population will increase, while hungry and homeless people will reproduce less. If a republic exits the Soviet Union, its population will stop being yours. However, these numbers don't always show reality. You can find more accurate information when using a map on the wall. Map shows statistics, which include some information from the right panel. It shows loyalty of left and right wings of the party, the CSS and the generals, quality of life, general state of the economy, heavy industry, agriculture at DEFCON, and other useful information. All these parameters influence each other. Visit it frequently so you can see results of your politics and what should be changed. All right, globe. It's a diplomatic map of the world. By choosing region and country, you can see its name, government type, political orientation, and membership in international organizations. White circle in the UN flag, country is neutral. Blue and white star in the American flag. The country is pro-American, supports the USA. NATO logo, country is a member of NATO. Military alliance, the USA. Claiming it's a defense pact. It's a load of crap. It's a military alliance that has been used aggressively many times. Yellow and red star, country is pro-Soviet and supports the Soviet Union. Comecon logo, red and white star with rings, country is a member of the Comecon Economic Alliance of the Soviet Union. Warsaw Pact logo, Union of Peace and Socialism, country is a member of the Warsaw Pact Military Alliance of the Soviet Union. Hammer and sickle, country is a member of the Soviet Union. Sometimes additional information about the country is shown. Ruling party, local war, its loyalty act. Many countries can be interacted with. That way, there should be no apostrophe. It's something belongs to something is ITS. The apostrophe means it is, not it's as in belongs to. Anyways, many countries can be interacted with using buttons below. Information about it. What? Okay, that's grammatically. I can't even figure out what I was trying to say. Actions require fulfillment of list of requirements and at least one authority point. While actions with different countries are also different, there are some general ones. Donations, support and financing a country would drain your resources and reduce your income. It's cheap to finance some countries, but a large number of donations can damage your economy. Donations for third world countries work differently. Military invasions reduce the size and power of your army. Changes are not significant, but don't do it too often. The diplomatic map is the only way to find out support of the Soviet countries. Keep in mind that when countries leave the Union, so-called status appears. It shows likeliness of the country to join NATO. If status reaches 0, the country will join NATO and it will become a lot harder to return it. Warsaw Pact works similarly. If a country is too low, they will distance the Soviet Union. Or if loyalty is too low. If liberalization is high, it will pass capitalistic reforms. Neither end well. You think? Neoliberal shock therapy in Eastern Europe horrendously messed up things there and led to a drastic decline in standards of living that put that region of the world far behind where it'd be if that never happened. All right. So it's currently got Bulgaria selected here, I guess. People's Democracy, Communist Party, 100 loyalty, no liberalization, etc. It's showing things you can do, but Warsaw Pact. Cool. Radio shows your modifiers. They show general situation in the world and the Soviet Union specifically. Every modifier can be positive or negative. Modifier is the right word. For example, the war in Afghanistan, which should be in the game start based on the historical situation, damages the economy, while the palace of Soviets built if you last past the historical collapse of the Soviet Union, improves national loyalty and unity. You can gain or lose modifiers as a result of your actions. There are examples and foibles of critical personality. In Afghan, like who goes on with that Afghan war, hegemony of the dollar, which can be broken. Gorbachev, his unique situations, the Cold War, blah blah blah. How's the Soviets mirror U.S. embargo? The calculator. It'd be the most visited place because we use it to distribute available resources. It's done by entering a number and pressing accept near the budget item. Budget consists of several sections. The army, if you invest here, it will increase power and loyalty to the army. Surprising, isn't it? Administrative spending. There you spend money for police, the state apparatus, and special services. Keep in mind that federal officials will steal less. A developed state apparatus won't allow corruption, and well-equipped CSS will catch corrupt figures more often. I think, yeah, CSS must be KGB here. So yeah, the KGB will catch corrupt officials. That was one of the things they historically did. They weren't just always only intimidating political opponents, including, people wanting a capitalist restoration and such, or were working with the CIA. It wasn't always just, we hate you just because. There were often reasons people were suspected, even if sometimes they were innocent. Like due process could be a problem, to say the least. Spiritual spending. Here you can spend money for art and religion, unless you fight with religion. Science. Investing here will generate more science points, depending on the chosen sphere, and positively affect other factors. Keep in mind that too large investments can damage the ecology and loyalty of conservatives. Influence. Bribes for the KGB, reformers, and others. However, it can increase corruption. Propaganda will increase national unity. Reduce liberalism, and slightly increase loyalty to the army and intellectuals. Donations. It will improve your international reputation and support diplomacy. Should increase your relations with other countries. You can also improve ecology here. Don't forget about it. Economy, the most important part. Here you distribute money for industry, agriculture, construction, act. Keep in mind that you don't have to invest large sums of money to improve the economy. Moreover, too many investments will demand more ecology spending, and income will be nullified by increased corruption. But I don't recommend cutting spending too much. Import, of course, it will help with fighting deficit. Means not deficit like financial deficit. It helps with fighting shortages of consumer goods and such. But any import will damage your industry and strengthen your enemies. Welfare. Here you distribute social spending. Or maybe it means help fight deficit. Like it's cheaper to import stuff and produce it domestically. Large spending will increase the quality of life and national loyalty. You can also fight with corruption here, but large spending can encourage fighters, quote, to steal too, become even worse. Right? You see military spending, soldier living standards. Telephone. From here, you can visit these places. The Supreme Council shows the main factions of the country, usually some new doctrines. Commie type, for example, or diplomatic actions require some factions majority in the Supreme Council. Percentage of the factions is affected by their actions. Certain ministers are just your support. So Trotskyites, Stalinists. Really, they shouldn't call it Stalinists at this point. Hardliners. So Trotskyites were kind of super hardliners to the point of condemning China as being supposedly revisionist and calling most other socialist revisionist. Trotskyites are a huge pain in the asses, honestly. Stalinist hardliners. Conservatives, really, it doesn't mean conservative in the sense like U.S. conservative. It means, in this case, mainstream communists, moderates, those who want moderate reforms, moving towards being more right-wing, actually, reformers. Further to the right, wanting to starting to bleed into liberals who are anti-socialist, pro-capitalist. These are increasingly more right-wing factions. Technocrats and Maoists who are suppressed and right now, and militarists. There's a militarist faction, so you can bring these back, I guess, somehow. Doctrines. There are a few of them, but they function the same way. Here you can choose economic and political systems, which will affect statistics. Every doctrine has advantages and disadvantages. You need some authority points to unlock ministries and 15 more points to change a doctrine. So it costs a lot of political power, but you can change policy. Over time, this game, technically, there's events scripted through 1991 and a few beyond, but you can, I believe, just keep playing. So if you manage to avoid collapse, and honestly, a smart approach, realistically, would be a long-term approach. It doesn't end the Cold War in 1981, say, but to slowly win over a long period of time. Though I don't know if you can get achievements if you. Anyways, Academy of Sciences. Here you spend science points to research new technologies. Every technology will also cost money, but they will give enormous advantages. Soviet Union was slowly gaining on the U.S. economically and technologically, but it probably, most estimates put it, wouldn't have been equal to the US and then started to actually surpass it until 2050, 2080, because it did have a higher long-term GDP per capita growth rate than the US ever did at a similar level of development, and then it did, period, one of the highest long-term GDP growth rates in the year, which is not in the world, which is not the same as the annual growth rate, because capitalist countries tend to have boom bust cycles. So they grow really, really strongly one year, and then they'll grow almost nothing or even shrink the economies the next year. And that means if you just average yearly growth rates, you'll get long-term rates that are and claim that's a long-term rate. It's not accurate. You need to look at like what's the size of GDP in 1985, what's in 1990. That's a 5-year growth rate. If you then you can turn that into an annualized rate by compound interest formulas. The Soviet Union didn't have these huge boom and bust cycles generally. When there was busts like the economic crisis, the 80s, it was on much longer time spans. The Soviet Union had been slowly headed towards that since the 70s. Their economy is much more stable, but it also meant the crises were longer lasting, just as boom times. The Soviet Union had a long boom between like 1945 and 69, lasting longer too. Slower moving cycles. Unfortunately, it would have been difficult for them to survive from the crisis started in the 70s till probably would have ended somewhere in like around mid 90s if they had weathered it a little later. And they probably would have entered another boom at that point. So, not the same rapid boom bust cycles. And the more ever the cycles that did exist were more due to failures in long-term planning and influence of the capitalist economies on the socialist ones, because they were still interconnected in various ways, like the price of oil. State statistics. Here you can view income and spending. However, they're not very accurate, so don't bother with it. Gold reserves. If there's not enough money for events or diplomatic actions in the calculator, money will be taken from here. And information about oil production and trade. If you press the arrow, you'll see the main politicians and their power. The more powerful your opponents are, the more they will damage your achievements and career. However, some strong politicians can improve the situation. Right. Okay, well, this wasn't translated. Council ministers. Here you can appoint your men to high government positions. You can see their political views, which will help to predict their actions. Yep. Like this is Mr. Foreign Affairs. And he favors restraining the U.S., preventing, I guess, from spreading its influence throughout the world. Okay, friendship with China, coexistence with the U.S., new political thinking. Historic stuff, I guess. Improving relations with the U.S. Final advice. I think you'd be able to navigate freely here, but most of the questions involve other things. So here are the answers for the most important questions, which will help you reach the glorious future. I'm listening, comrade? It's not easy to be a reformer. Once you pass some reforms, people demand more. I think you understand that depending on a choice you will make when such demands occur, you'll face a lot of new problems. Depending on the choice you make, you'll face a lot of new problems. If too many countries leave the Union, you'll be removed from power. It's a bad idea to act as a, quote, liberator of nations, even if you are a reformer. Almost every action, like support S&B, give aid to the country group, organize an event, both map and during events, will take some money. How the economy works. It effectively consists of the effectiveness of agriculture, heavy and light industry, military, industrial complex, and services, and is defined as producing power. These spheres have the biggest effect. But as I said earlier, large investment leads to corruption and won't lose. The initial effect is the effectiveness of these spheres, excluding producing power. If the effectiveness of these spheres, excluding producing power, reaches values of 8 to 10, don't invest anymore. The main point of investments is to increase these values. Before you make the first step to communism, this refers to correct Marxist theory that many people never bother to learn anything about, don't understand. The Soviet Union never claimed to be communist. That's something outsiders will ascribe to it and misinterpret. Many parties calling themselves communist parties. Communism was the goal that they sought and referred to the final stage of socialism. So they referred to this path to communism. That was what the parties were called communists for. Communism being basically a point at which the state would wither away and money would cease to exist, and it'd be like kind of a utopia at the end. I think realistically, it would take hundreds of years to get there, but in this game, you can reach it in like a decade. Before you make the first step to communism, depending on the 5-year plan, 2 or more economic spheres, of course, that requires extremely skilled play. 2 more economy spheres won't rise above 8 or 9 unless you invest more than 200 in them. So you have to invest more than 200 to get spheres above 8 or 9. Depends on your plan. So you want whatever you want to focus on, you can probably get higher. You can fight corruption by investing in the state apparatus, the KGB, computerization, and corruption fighting spending, but don't spend too much. Automation of the economy and KGB power also help a lot. Agriculture, heavy and light industry, military industrial complex, service sphere, and have high enough producing power, there is no or too low of an income or a negative income, then try to install collective economy in the Warsaw Pact, accept more countries in the common economy in the Warsaw Pact, gain access to the Chinese market, begin free trade with France, invest in civil technologies, try not support appointing ministers who support donations and fight with the West, or fighting with the West. Fight corruption, statistics a lot because of it, decrease donations, and try not supporting anyone on the diplomatic map. You want to reach the first stage of communism, research ASAS technology. After that, I think that's like an internet technology, the idea being that to reach communism, the game dev society would require the internet, which is probably true. To really have ordinary people participate more in government and reduce the overly powerful Soviet state, yeah, the internet would have been key. After that, make sure that you are powerful and a powerful and trusted leader. If everything goes well, the rewards would be enormous. Story of the USA, research, espionage, military and space technologies, while not forgetting to tell the world about your victories, accept more countries in the Common Warsaw Pact, follow the American plans during events. The US will do all sorts of imperialist stuff in this game, like it historically did, invading countries like Panama, bombing Libya. Sound familiar? Happened in the Cold War, happened again in a much larger scale more recently. Increase the number of pro-Soviet countries, organize revolutions in the third world countries and install friendly regimes there, make France leave NATO, invest in diplomacy, the effect is limited. Leaving Afghanistan is a bad idea. First, try to improve the situation in your country, and after it influence the international arena on the diplomat map. Do what you want during events. Have a nice game. Okay, it doesn't put me right into the game. Finally get some music here. Thought that'd be like a play tutorial, but nope. Not quite. Alright. Well, I'm sure some of you will say the action starts here, like someone did in my Dwarf Fortress video, where I spent like 30 minutes with the world generation and preparing for my first fort with the embark. Like deciding how many turkeys to bring and how many tons of stone for early construction and sand. Because it's not that much more expensive than stone to bring sand into a fortress fort and make glass blocks. Requires somewhat more dwarven labor to fire up the bricks, and it's a bit more expensive, but you get a bunch of bags as a byproduct. Anyways, bags that had sand on them. Anyways, this one posted when the action began. Maybe I'll just link it myself. Alright, so I can choose a starting year. 1985, 6, and it's noting that this is after Romanov or after Gorbachev. After Grishchin, after Gromyko, or 1901. Perestroika is reliance on the loving creativity of the masses. That's probably a no line. 1985, earliest year. Before things are quite as far towards collapse. Or really, I think realistically, would have required extremely skilled politicians, which the Soviet Union may have had some people that were career politicians, but then to avoid collapse, things really needed to change much, much, much earlier. Probably some changes as far back as the 1930s. You can create a custom leader. And lead the Soviet Union in a unique way. You choose a leader. Romanov, this guy's neo-Stalinist, opposes the reformers. Gorbachev, reformer. Ooh, that's loud. Viktor Grishchin, conservative and Brezhnist, supporter of the compromise principle. Or Gromyko, a moderate, huge experience, respectable member of the party. Romanov, I'll read the descriptions. Romanov decided not to go to his Planger residence during Chernenko's sickness. This is explaining how alternate survey that could have taken part, I guess. So Gromyko hadn't risked taking the responsibility for Gorbachev. Hadn't risked Gorbachev taking role of the country. Grishchin refused to nominate himself, and Romanov, with small votes superior, headed the country. Gorbachev. While Romanov was in his Crimea residence, Gorbachev nominally quickly held the party congress, where Gromyko in the last moment decided to support him, and Grishchin decided not to nominate himself. Now Mikhail can stop hiding his views under Lenin's quotations or forming the Unionist dreams. Viktor Grishchin. Gromyko hadn't succumbed to Gorbachev's promises, if this hadn't happened, and hadn't risked supporting himself instead of supporting himself, though as before he refused to nominate himself. Now it seems that changes won't. That's redundant. So he didn't, if Gromyko hadn't nominated himself, refuses to nominate himself, and yeah, anyways. Now it seems changes won't disturb the Union, but will it be for long? Gromyko hadn't succumbed, if he hadn't succumbed to Gorbachev's promises and hadn't risked supporting himself, though listened to the party colleagues' advice and nominated himself, having Grishchin's support. Even Gorbachev understood they won't gain anything and vote for him. Now, Gromyko, who thinks the Union needs reforms, but a moderate type, is ready to face responsibility ruling such a huge country. If I click on them, what is it? Oh, it goes right into the game? Wanted to see, like, any more info on the leaders. That's country statistics. Oh, these are pre-game events. Whoops. June 17th. Okay. I don't even know who I picked. I want to figure out how to exit out here. How do I exit? Back out. Gah! I'll figure it out in a moment, I'm sure. After accidentally doing 50 other things. Back to the main menu. Okay, so it's annoying. Click on something, starts right in. I have no idea what it means by Brezhnevist. I'm curious what happens if you create your own leaders. Type Trotsky. Tip Khrushchev. I see. So based on the foreign policy it sets a type, or maybe it sets it based on all these things. Interior policy, full control, conservative, moderate control, liberalization. Let's see. Confrontation, conservative. This probably starts coexistence, foreign policy. Interior policy, full control, conservative control, mod control, mobilization. Island Cup? Interesting. Economic policy planned, conservative, mixed, market. Coexistence is probably the right starting foreign policy if this affects it. Interior policy, things are going to go to hex, so probably full control. Economic policy. Some reform. It seems this is a Brezhnevist. This mix of stuff. The confrontation gets this, but so does. Wait. Interesting. I have no idea. I think it's a matter of how far left or right it is. Alright, just so I have more idea of how things are going to start. Boom. Some economic reforms, harsh interior policy, because system's probably going to be very unstable. And coexistence, because confrontation might be a problem first. Like to make friends with China, which should probably be happy with the coexistence foreign policy. So I'll be coming for the capitalists eventually. But yeah. I don't know if I get burned with unique events from some of those other leaders, but I don't really know how they start. And I'm curious. Let's start with the... Oh. Alright. This is main statistics. Trying to find, and I know it's got to be around here somewhere. That's the council. Interior Ministry, Foreign Ministry. Let's see. It's the goal view. Calculator. What am I looking for? I'm starting to forget. This is setting the various funding levels. Oh. That's statistics. You can see the various policies. Type of economy. State plan with self-management elements. Right, so that's what it starts as. So I figured, attachment to factories. The labor policy. In order to increase production, we need to abolish the right to voluntarily dismiss workers. Let the self-realization of the population suffer. There'll be more benefits, right? Or longer work weeks, or fight parasitism. Fight those who aren't working, like slackers, free labor. We need to force women to work, let people work, where and how they want, or they're conscious enough to understand that labor is necessary for the motherland or a shortened work week. Technological progress in the growth of productive forces allows workers to work less, earn more. After all, life is given to live, not to work, right? Interesting. So let's see. Foreign or interior policies. Type of government. Party. Militarization. The party is the revolutionary front line, which consists of the most progressive thinkers. They must have the power over workers' countries. This refers to a revolutionary cadre or a that phrase here. Marxist Leninists always use Marxist. I'm not a Marxist Leninist, but democratic socialist, more on the line of like Gorbachev, but without the stupidity of not being at all pragmatic about the situation. We're lucky to live in a great country where this is more of an absolute rule thing. Soviet Republic, power of the Soviets, according to the Brezhnev monolith. Formerly, the country is ruled by the Soviets, but its actual power is in the hands of the party. People's democracy, a multi-party system with a de facto leading role. One of the parties, the leadership of the country, passes the president, who is located above the parliament. Chinese democracy. The construction of socialism is based on the free creativity of the masses. There can be no general line. CPSU, while maintaining a monopoly on power, allows alternative elections and the creation of SPM. Factional democracy, one-party system with a number of factions inside direct democracy. And the people are directly involved in the organization and the authorities. The one-party system is preserved, but the institution of the presidency is introduced. Census democracy. All the party system which defends the will, minorities and compromises. Western democracy, yes, i.e. bourgeois democracy controlled by billionaires and such. Yeah, there's some reforms that can be done. All sorts of them, actually. 5-year plans. Focus on the military right now. Focus on light industry, agriculture, etc. Can't change anything right now, right? The loyalty to the generals, I have no political power yet. Budget there. Can I allocate funding already? Before any of the starting pre-events? Let's find out. Not the right part of the month. Can't change budgets yet. Okay. Let's jump into these pre-game events then. What was that? June 17th, 1953. Massive unrest in East Germany, GDR, German Democratic Republic, due to the food crisis, over-industrialization. So there were no famines in this period, but there were shortages that caused unrest. Last Soviet famines were in the 1940s. They gradually improved agricultural output. They'd had famines periodically for hundreds of years, and they managed to, within a relatively short time, put an end to famines completely. But let's see, 20-something years, and that's with 2 wars. First the Russian Civil War, and then World War II. And massive hostility from the West, including invasion of the Soviet Union during the Russian Civil War by a coalition of nations, including Great Britain, who used nerve gas on a Soviet village near Archangel, I think it was, in the far north of the Soviet Union. Something Winston Churchill actually ordered. At that time, he was not yet the leader of Britain, but he was in a position, I think he was the Minister of War at the time, to order that, and he did. Churchill was an evil bastard. Anyways, massive unrest in the GR due to the food crisis, over-industrialization, desire among the Soviet leadership to unite Germany as a democratic, neutral state. So at this time, they were trying to make Germany a neutral country. The situation was aggravated by the actions of American special services, CIA and such, saboteurs' use of agit machines, so funding unrest and sabotage, and the West German authorities. Transfer of, quote, peaceful protesters from West Berlin to East Berlin. So, sending people into East Berlin who were sometimes violent. The crowd seized the SED Central Committee building and the government house. The red banner was thrown from the Brandenburg Gate. The GDR Customs Service building was smashed and burned down. After a fierce assault, the National Front headquarters, the Central Coalition of Trade Unions, and the House of the Soviet-German Friendship Society were captured. So that's a lot of this is pre-game stuff. So you get to set how things in alternate story here. I don't know what the historical thing was. Full-fledged military operation lead to a lot of civilian casualties. Support power of the Marts probably lead to things, not going well. And by the way, this is 1953, so it's only 8 years after the Nazis, and actually a lot of still underground fascists still in Germany at this time. So moderates would not have worked to get rid of them. Indeed, historically, West Germany did not get rid of a lot of its Nazis who went underground. East Germany was more successful, but there were still a lot of Nazis who... So moderates would not be aggressive enough in that, so use armies to control protests for certain. But not a full-fledged military operation. So this is how that works out. I think on June 18th, the first secretary of the SED Central Committee, Walter Ulbricht, appealed for military assistance to the Soviet Union. Soviet troops blocked the GR state border within several hours, preventing people from crossover from West Germany to cause trouble. Decisive actions, tank columns cooled the ardor of military preparations of the West. The West was preparing to invade. Tanks entered into East Berlin and were met with shots and bottles with incendiary mixtures, so like a Tiananmen Squares type thing. Soviet soldiers who did not receive an order to open fire were stunned by swearing and chanting, "Ivan, get out." So who did not receive an order to open fire, the crowd chanted Hitler's anthem. Remember what I was saying about fascists? Yeah, that probably would have happened too. However, no one dared to engage in open clashes with General Checo's tank units. 500,000 crowd of demonstrators dispersed. The situation was taken under control. The victims minimal, so there was no massacre of civilians or anything. Soviet troops had disciplined not to open fire. Yeah. Hungary. October 23rd, 1956 marked a period of counter-revolutionary insurgency in Hungary. Getting a little further past World War II. Still a lot of residual fascists in Hungary in the 50s, though. Caused by the subversive actions of Imre Nagy's reformist faction and the mistakes made by the country's leadership during Hungary's industrialization. Mistakes is an understatement. They horribly bumbled it. Armed militants